Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. In this video I will discuss two issues. One is Donald Trump, who's actually mentioned in both issues, but in the first issue he claims that the United States of America did more than any other country to win the Second World War. And the second topic is Donald Trump says, you know what? The United States of America will finally celebrate our victories, which is 8th of May this year, which is going to be a defeat of Nazi Germany. Well, why is it May 8th and is not May 9th? As you probably know, the Russians celebrated on May 9th. The Americans now decided we're going to celebrate it on May 8th. The Ukrainians are going to celebrate it in May 8th. But remember, Ukraine was part of Soviet Union, who celebrated on May 9th. Well, I don't think it matters if it's May 8th or May 9th, but why is the United States of America celebrating the Victory Day on May 8th and not in September 2nd? If you don't know what I'm talking about, the United States of America entered the war because we're attacked by Japan, not by Germany. So their war was with Japan. The war with Japan ended and was signed in Tokyo Harbor in September 2nd, 1945 on the USS Missouri. So why is not Victory Day, as Trump wants to celebrate, on September 2nd, when really you won against the enemy? Is it because Trump's circle tells him that Germany must be the main guy that we won against, not Japan, who actually attacked us? That's the same idiotic statement or idea that the First World War was lost by whom again? If you say Germany, I have to remind you that Germany was not the initiator. The initiator was what? Was Austria-Hungary and Serbia. Those were the initiators of the First World War. And then the alliances come and started helping. But somehow everybody knows the First World War, Germany was defeated. Not Austria-Hungary, not Turkey, nothing like that. The same, in the Second World War, we know again it was Germany, even the Americans who fought the Germans just because of the alliances, not because they were attacked by Germans in the first place. I think because Trump has certain advisors around him who are telling him that we have to focus on the German guilt. Got the hint? All right. So that's the first one with September 2nd, when actually was signed, and why May 8th now. September 2nd, May 8th. And the other one, let me show you. Let's start with this one. So we are talking about the casualties, civilian casualties, military casualties, the war effort that Trump says that we did more than anybody else. Well, it's discussable, and I will explain on what kind of areas we're going to discuss who made more sacrifice or did more than everybody else. First one, Trump proclaims May 8th as Victory Day in Second World War in the United States of America. So, he said that he proclaimed May 8th will be marked in the United States as Victory Day in World War II and 11th of November as Victory Day in World War I. Against whom? Germany again? Oh, I guess. All right, he says, many of our allies and friends are celebrating May 8th as Victory Day, but we did not than any other, but we did more than any other country, by far, in producing a victorious result of the World War II. Do you agree with that statement? Even if you agree, which I disagree, that we did more than any other country, I disagree with that one. And then by far, that's being stupid twice. I am hereby renaming the May 8th as a Victory Day for World War II. World War II ended for you in September 2nd, but because I said his advisors want the German guilt be also pressed on the Americans, here you have it. And November 11th as Victory Day in World War I. Okay, well, we never celebrate anything, we don't have, blah, blah, blah. We're going to start celebrating our victories again. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. So, again, how did the Second World War started? And when? Well, if you tell me that it was September 1st, 1939, with the Germans' invasion of Poland, I think you're wrong. That's not how it started. That's not a world war. That's one country against another country. That's one-on-one. Now, then, what happened? Then, because the Poles had an alliance and promise from Great Britain, just do it, we're going to enter and we're going to get the Germans, the United Kingdom, Great Britain, declared war, the empire declared war to Germany. That's how it started. And then in 48 hours, if I remember correctly, the French declared. They both had to declare war against Germany. Why? The reason was the dignity of the Polish people. I totally agree with that. And the invasion of a sovereign independent country by an aggressor, Nazi Germany. Correct. Now, when they declared war because of those reasons, when Soviet Union did the same thing the Germans did, why didn't they live up to their values? And whatever they said, invasion of a sovereign independent country, the dignity of the Polish people, they didn't declare war on Soviet Union. So what does that tell you? That tells me that the proclaimed reason why we, the West, Brits and the French, attacked Germany, declared war against Germany, because they attacked Poland, they didn't declare the same thing against Soviet Union. That means it's situational values. Now, that's no values at all. You either had them or not, because that is like, I will intervene if she is raped by him, but I will not intervene if she is raped by him. No, I should always intervene or don't intervene for anybody. I'm either an asshole, or I defend and uphold my character, my values, my principles. So, and then what happened after the Second World War? They dropped Poland, the dignity of the Polish people, to the Soviets, sphere of influence and occupation. How we want to... Soviet Union had troops in Poland. Remember? All right. So, but that's how lies are made out of. So that's the first one. And what happened in that's how the Second World War started. How did it start for the United States of America? The Americans were pushed by some kind of lobby to enter the war. But in the Congress, they stopped. They didn't wanna, right? And then the Japanese declared war a few hours after they attacked Pearl Harbor in a surprise attack. What was that? Was 7th of December, 1941? Wasn't it? So, when they did that, then we declared war to Japan back, and then Germany and everybody else declared war with him. But we were at war with Japan in the first place. They attacked us. Their delegation was waiting, what the hell? At the White House, if I remember correctly, in the Chancellery, whatever it's called, waiting over there in the waiting room to enter while those guys attacked Pearl Harbor. They attacked Pearl Harbor, they went over there and they said this is a declaration of war. Well, why did they declare war? Why did they attack the United States of America? Well, the Japanese claimed that you stopped us, prevented us from doing business in East Asia, in Southeast Asia. Therefore, it's like I tell you, you cannot go and buy your groceries from this store, that store, that store. You have to go to France to buy your groceries. Go ahead. What would you do? You either starve with your family, or you try to punch me in the face in the middle of the dark alley. Depends what kind of balls you got or not. So, on top of this, the United States of America deciphered, what's going on with this eye? Deciphered, I can take it out, gouge it. Deciphered the code, the Japanese code, as the Europeans had the German enigma decoded. So they knew what's going on, but hey, that's again, I'm going to have to fix the eye, gouge it. I don't think I fixed it, but nevertheless, when I stay too close to the cat, some tiny, mini more hair goes in my eye probably. So, what happened? They were attacked. They kind of knew about it. They did not know the date, but they knew they were about to be attacked. Doesn't matter. I'm talking about we were attacked. We Americans were attacked by the Japanese. And still, Trump says we're going to have it on May 8th in Europe against Germany while we were still fighting June, July, August, September. We fought for, actually it was 15th August, if I remember correctly, when the Japanese said we surrender unconditionally. I think it was 15th of August, and they surrendered, as I said, in Tokyo Harbor on USS Missouri. They signed a declaration of we're done. So why not that one? I think, as I said, that's the reason why. Well, you can contradict me however you want. Everything I said is true. It's factual. Nevertheless, let's go to the second topic. Sputnik. Trump claims United States did more than any country to win World War II. Okay, right? Maybe. And how did you measure that? I would like to know how did he gauge that? Moscow. U.S. President Donald Trump declared May 8 Victory Day, saying the United States did more than any other country to win World War II. The Soviet Union bore the brunt of defeating Nazi Germany and its European allies, destroying the vast majority of German forces of the Eastern Front. That is correct. With over 27 million dead, now it doesn't mean that you were efficient. It was the Red Army's relentless push from Stalingrad to Berlin that shattered Hitler's war machine. Yeah, but you were helped with some money, with some tractors from trucks from Ford Motors and so on. The USSR also played a crucial role in Japan's defeat, crushing the army in 1945, a key factor in Tokyo's surrender. It could be interpreted differently. You just wanted to get... And that was a different story. While the Americans wanted to get over Japan, it was a land grab and sphere of influence. They were looking in the future already, in years. Instead, that's why the Americans sped up with the atomic bombs so they can make these guys surrender unconditionally. The Japanese did not want to do that, so a delegation from the Japanese went to Moscow, and they wanted to sign with Soviets a peace treaty. And they want to say, we'll surrender to the Soviets. And the Americans says, we're going to bomb the shit out of you, you do it now. And they keep saying that and doing it until this guy said, okay, you're going to exterminate all of us, which is called genocide. But hey, it saved our boys' lives and shortened the war. Can Putin use the same logic in Ukraine? Nah, I don't think so. It was a war crime. It's clear what it was. And it was blackmail, we're going to queue up. Well, the strong sets the rules, I guess. Not I guess, I think that's the way it is, right? So then they came and they signed with the Americans, and Americans took over. But the Russians attacked in Sakhalin, in Northern Territory, and not Sakhalin, Jesus Christ, Kuril Islands. In Northern Territory is trying to do exactly what the Americans were doing. It was a land grab, population enslavement. And the Americans succeeded in doing exactly that. So, why not second? Now, who had more, who did more? Well, as number of forces, of troops, you can't compare. Land and territory, mass, conquered or pushed back, you can't compare. Is the Russians or the Soviets. I will use the Soviets because they're the Soviets. And then, not only that, it was, remember, the Georgian dictator, Joseph Vissarionovich Djugashvili, called Stalin, Man of Steel. He asked the Allies to open another front twice until they open it on what was it, 6th of June 43, wasn't it? 44? 44, I think it was. Yeah, I think 44. It was the end of the war. Anyway, the Russians, the Soviets, already liberated the entire territory coming towards this, and they said, oh, land grab. That's why they had that landing in Normandy. But nevertheless, they had 10% there. The Germans had 10% of the military deployed on the west. When these guys landed, they meet some... Anyway, the other guys were fighting 90% of the Wehrmacht. It is true that the Allies were also pushing from Italy. We should look into that as well. My point is this. There was a collective effort. Don't take the torch of I did it, you did it. In terms of, and I'm going to show you a graph. In terms of numbers, by far the Soviet Union lost. Now you can say, well, they were just dumbasses and they were inefficient and they just hoorah and did it. But in civilians' casualties, in the destruction of a country, and in the military casualties. On the other hand, without the Lend-Lease, without the support maybe technical, maybe military, maybe I know the Americans provided trucks to the Russian Soviets. That's all they provided. Ford trucks, if I remember correctly. They didn't provide. I think they provided something else, but not like tanks or T-32. It was Russian made, Soviet made, and so on, or weapons and so on. It was Soviets, but nevertheless, was provided with loans. Lend-Lease was provided with some trucks, and they helped them. How much? Us, the Soviets or the Russians. And on the other side, yes, you helped in Europe. Yes, you did what you did in Japan. Excellent. But did you do more than everybody else? I don't think so. I don't think so. If tomorrow the Germans would have, let's say the Americans would not have intervened, no lending, the Soviets would have been in Lisbon, I would think. And Japan would have been in its little world over there with China and Korea and Taiwan and Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia and so on. That's where they will end up, in that area. But the history showed us something else. So let's go to this little piece of World War II deaths. Now remember, it doesn't mean that you had more deaths, you suffered. Maybe you were, as I said twice already. So here you have some numbers here. So in the red is military deaths in millions. In this kind of, I don't know what it is, orange, civilian deaths. Put together is total deaths, military and civilians. So Soviet Union obviously is right here, almost to 24 million total deaths. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, because I think this was coming up. First it was 12, then it was 16. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's clear that these guys had the most. However you want to take it, by far, where's the United States of America? Right here. The United States of America, I think, had less casualties, civilian zero, actually, because nothing happened on their territory. There was like 2 or 3 submarines, or 1 or 2 in California that showed up, the Japanese, and in Seattle, I think. So here you have in Romania, right there, more than Americans, right there. But we did more than everybody else. I mean, even the Germans, yeah, they lost, right? But the Americans, United Kingdom, French in the China, Yugoslavia, even these guys, and they claim. I mean, however you want to take it, you can look at it as money and so on. You need that. It is true. But in the end, in order to, you can have the money. You need someone to do something. It's a collective. The fact, how should I put it? Why the guys were turned around in Stalingrad? Stalingrad was a turning point. And that was not in 1944, the Stalingrad. And then it was the Japanese turning their attention to their imbecilic Southeast Asia to get resources, instead of doing what Hitler told them. Go and attack Soviet Union, open a second front, or even if you just pretend, open it. So the Russians, Soviets, will not move their forces from the Eastern Front, by Japan, by China, in that area with Manchuria. So they will not. But when they realized that the Russians, Soviets, sorry, when I say Russians, that's a mistake. It was not the Russians, it was the Soviets, because the Ukrainians were also in the Soviet Union. Moldovans, Romanians were also there. People from Kazakhstan, the Latvians, Letonians, Estonians, they were over there. So it's a collective in Soviet Union. So when these guys, the Russians, the Soviets got intelligence that the Japanese focus on something else, they took their troops from Siberia, and those guys on skis came, goddamn, from across the Siberian, went. If those people showed up, that was the end of it. So it's true. Now, if you think, I think that's idiotic. It's idiotic, I would say, even to contemplate. I'm not a pro-Russian whatsoever, but with all the knowledge I have, not information, knowledge I have about the Second World War, there's no way I can say that the United States of America did the most by far. I wouldn't even say it did the most. I can't say that. I can't. It's anyway, and by far. Now, if someone says that, what would you say about that person? Liar? Ignorant? I don't pretend to know everything, obviously, but I know I say the little I know, but the evidence is there. You can't make up things. You can't make up. It's true, some blockades and all that. It's all that is true. In Africa, but in Africa, the Americans were a little bit with Rommel and so on. And that was, again, because those guys were bombarding the Ploiești oil fields, and not only, they destroyed the Germans' war machine by cutting them off oil. You can't run a war without food and resources. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I think it should be in America done on September 2nd, not May 8th, but it's done that. I told you why they changed that. And regarding the other statement, I think that's in your dreams. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.